Hi, everyone. I hope you are having a fantastic day. This is a great class. And the reason being is I've been asked to teach this for I can't even think how long. I think I first had clients start telling me, well, you should teach a class on this and why we should be investing at this stage of our life for many, many years. If I think back to the very beginning of us starting doing this back, almost 16 years ago, our first clients all started in their golden years. And so it's real personal to me because I think that a lot of people misunderstand what it takes to invest. And there's a lot of fear surrounding, am I too late? Is this something that I should have started in my 30s or my 40s or even my 50s? And so I want to talk about not only the ease of investing, but also the ways in which it helps build and boost your retirement. And so I'm going to take questions as we go, like typical, and I'll get to them just as quickly as I can. And then, of course, if you have any questions after I finish today, as always, you can reach out and we can continue that dialogue directly. So as always, before I get started, everything I'm going to talk about today is my best judgment and guidance based on years of investment property ownership, real estate company operation, and just generally doing the same things that I'm talking about. We are one tool in your toolbox, and my job and my obligation in my mind is to make sure that I not only give you the guidance that I would want you to have, but also connect you with others that can guide you along your journey, because we're not the end all. We're one piece of that puzzle, but there's so many other partners that work with us and work in conjunction with our process to allow us to do what we do. And so although it may be our model and it may be our hand-holding that gets you to that end goal, there's a lot of people along the way that are going to be great resources for you. And that's going to be people like your CPA, which for something like this topic is so important. And that's just because there's a lot of tax benefits to what we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to briefly touch on them. And that may be something that we circle back for a second follow-up class going over some more of that. It's also about making sure that you have the right people to educate you in all facets. And so I really try in everything that we do to give you background guidance and education and all the different pieces of everything that we do. But there's also great contacts and people we're going to connect you with that take that dialogue a step further. And so we always want to make sure when you have questions, you get them answered. And whether you're investing with us or on your own or with someone else, that you are armed with as much information as possible. We are big believers in an educated investor. And so that's why this is so important to me. At this stage of where I am and owning and operating the company, of all the things that I do on a day-to-day basis, this education piece is what I enjoy the most. And it's because I love being able to talk to our people, but it's also because if it wasn't for the education that I got up front and the learning that I did and the tools that I used, I wouldn't be where I am. And so I think it's really important, instead of saying do as I do, and just making sure you understand every step and why we take those steps and how long after I'm gone, people are going to be continuing to do these steps and do what we talk about. So I've got two great classes coming up. This one's on April 28th, and we're going to talk about why we tier our leases to prime season. This will be a shorter class, so great for a lunch hour or to go back and listen to on your drive to work. We're going to talk about why we built our model that way. And it's something that I don't even think many clients know we do, but all of our properties that are under a routine lease with us, that we put the lease in place, unless there's some special circumstance, their end date happens in prime season. And there's a whole lot of reasons for that. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about. And we're going to look at statistics of why we do it that way and how we do it that way. And then finally, May 19th, we're going to have, and this will be a probably pretty lengthy class, the entire purchase contract has been revamped and reworked. I absolutely love it, and I'm very excited to go over it with you line by line. So just like the lease class that many of you have watched, we're going to go over the contract and the pieces that you need to know, what protects you, what's changed, and how we're going to utilize it to your advantage when you're a buyer and to your advantage when you're a seller. And because of course our 2 to 6 year model is such that you're going to be in both situations throughout your time with us. And so I love the changes though, so I definitely want to preface I'm excited to go over this. Sometimes they'll put out a change to a contract and I'm cringing a little bit on the inside. This is definitely not one of those. We're very excited. So as always for our classes, there's a couple ways that you can keep up to date with our class schedule other than the flyers which you're getting. Number one is you can go to our Facebook page and see upcoming events, and then you can register for those events through Facebook. And of course, you can go to our website and you can go to our media page and see the list of all past classes and go back and rewatch them, as well as go on YouTube or any of the podcasts that we go to as well. And then, of course, for more information, you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. All of our classes go to YouTube and all of our classes go to our website. We've got a couple great upcoming events that we'll be sending out information about. We're going to have our next quarterly mixer. I think that we're all very ready for that and being able to get back together and mix and mingle with like-minded investors. And so we'll be sending out details on that pretty shortly. And then we're going to have some great stuff this summer. So stay tuned for all of that. So the goal of what we're going to talk about today is why it's okay to start later, why you can still follow the same model and be able to build wealth and passive income regardless of what age you start at. There are some people who start young, like me and Michael, who bought our first house at 18. And then there are some people who come to me and they buy their first property at 70. And so the first and probably most important takeaway that I want you to have today is that it doesn't matter what stage of life you're in. It doesn't matter what your financial situation is at that time. There Oh, not sure what happened there. Sorry about that. So there's a couple different things that I think about when I talk about wanting to invest during retirement or during your golden years. And the reason I say either or is because we see more and more people not retiring. We have more and more people who are continuing to work or do different life ventures past your typical retirement age. And there's a lot of reasons for that, and I'm not going to cover a whole lot of that right now, but there are so many different paths that people take as they approach retirement. I have clients that are 40 and retiring, and I have clients who are 70 or 75 and still working. My own grandmother is in her mid 80s and still works full time, not by necessity, but by choice. And so I think there is a cultural shift that has happened a lot with how people see themselves as they age. And so the traditional mentality and what I was raised with and what many of you were probably raised with is that when we retire, it is about modifying our lifestyle or having enough money saved up that we can live long enough until we die. That is, at the end of the day, when somebody retires, they're looking at the amount of money they have, the amount of money coming in, and thinking, can I make it if I live to be X, Y, or Z years old? And there's a lot of problems with that mentality, and I'm going to talk about some of them in a moment. Of course, the most important being you have no idea how long you're going to live for. You have no idea what expenses are going to come up. And we, I think, all have learned that we just don't have the ability to count on anybody else to take care of us. And that's a hard lesson sometimes. You know, I personally, I knew when I went into this day one that my goal was to be able to support myself, to never have to count on anyone else. And of course, if we look at what's happened this last year, for everyone who is out of work, everyone who couldn't go to work, couldn't make money in the government through $1,600 or $1,800, or, you know, maybe for some people, no money at. We are in control of our own destiny, and that's wider reaching than just our retirement income, right? That's a life motto, a life model, and that is certainly something that Michael and I follow. We are in control of everything that we do and everything that we say, and it's one of the kind of cornerstones to owning our business and running it as that mom and pop feel that we do. So our mentality is the ability to continue your existing lifestyle and increase your income without working. And so for us, it's not about being able to make it long enough until we die that we don't run out of money, but it's about knowing that no matter what life throws at us and no matter what comes in the world, in our lives, in our health, and our family, that we are on a path and in a situation where we can handle that. And that is, it's more than just a mentality of income and expense and retirement or an old age. It's about how you live your life and the peace that that brings. There are so many people that I talk to on a regular basis. I have one client in mind who their goal has been all along, I need to replace $10,000 a month in income, $10,000 a month in income, and then we can sell our business and retire. And my answer to that is no, you need more than 10,000 a month, because you can survive on 10,000 a month and you can continue your lifestyle as it is. But one medical incident, somebody gets injured, somebody gets sick, maybe you have a child you need to buy a home for because something's happened, or you just never know what can happen. And so for me, it's about helping people be able to go above and beyond what they think they need, and also not be thinking about how old you're going to live to, but about how you're going to live those years. And so for us, it's very much about building that path and continuing that path regardless of where you start it. So whether you come to us as a 20-year-old who just won the lottery, or whether you come to us as a 40-year-old retired baseball player, or whether you come to us as a 75-year-old grandfather who wants to do something and build that income and that passive wealth. And all three of those are true situations, by the way. That is what we are here to support. And so when I look at retirement income, there's a few things that to me are must-haves. Number one, it has to be low risk, because it is in most cases the only income you live on. Now, of course, you might get a little bit from Social Security or other small ventures like that, but that's not going to pay the bulk of your bills, right? That barely covers insurance cost until you're eligible for insurance, and then supplements and everything else beyond that. So for me, at the end of the day, everything that you do once you give up your W-2 or your primary job income must be low risk. And this is huge, because this is where I see a lot of people fail. I can't tell you how many people I know who had retirement benefits and had things that they thought were going to sustain them, and then the crash came through, or a company went bankrupt, or went outsourced or whatever and failed, and all of a sudden that pension or whatever they thought was their retirement disappeared. And so it has to not only be low risk, but something that you completely control. Number two, it has to be able to keep up. It has to be able to keep up with your expenses, your lifestyle, your life, and let's say you're 45 or 50 when you retire, because you're in a financial position to be able to do so, and you live to be 100. Whatever you have in 50 years, say that you have a set amount, or you have some set item, or God forbid, Social Security is a piece of it and you're a little older. Expenses change, lifestyles change. Look at what we were all paying for health insurance 20 years ago versus what we're paying now. When I got into the business, I remember my health insurance was like $199 a month, and it was 100% pay, and it was, I think, a maybe $1,000 deductible, and it was like $200 a month. And now my insurance for not near as good of coverage is $700, $750 a month. And that's pretty cheap, because my company census is pretty young, which keeps the pricing down. So things that are outside of our control can change. So whatever retirement income we have has to keep up with that. And then finally, why? Like I said, imagine you retire at 55 and you live to be 90. That is 35 years you have to live on whatever you have at retirement. And so if you are not actively working to build that and make it go further for you, what chance do you have that you're going to find yourself at 70 or 75 or 80 and not be able to pay your bills, or not be able to pay a hidden expense? And this is what we find facing so many of our seniors. And it's very simple to avoid that. It's very simple to start small and work small, because I'm not sitting here telling you to go buy 100 rental properties and be crazy like I am. I'm telling you to go do something small and simple to supplement enough that you have an extra nest egg, and that you have something that is weather and market dependent. And that is the key, in my mind, of setting retirement income and goals. So retirement is generally a set income It's often risky and it will not increase. Stocks are completely market dependent. They are completely outside of your control. Michael tells a story a lot about people who invested in stocks that also invested with us and their stocks went down to zero. And that doesn't have to be a market crash, guys. We've seen now it can be something crazy like airlines having to shut down or cruises having to shut down and them not being able to sustain and not getting a bailout to make it through. It doesn't have to be the entire world falling apart. It can be something simple. And there can be a company that the entire area they operate in is destroyed by a hurricane, and then every business in that area that they feed and that feeds them goes out of business, and now you've got a company that's worth nothing. And so, yeah, there are so many situations that can happen that are outside of our control. And COVID has really opened a lot of people's eyes to that. And I think that's good and bad, right? Because number one, it's made people afraid, and specifically afraid of the stock market. And we're seeing that a lot. And for those of you that have been following me for years, know I'm not a fan of the stock market. Yes, when it started to really fall during COVID, I did buy stocks. It would have been stupid not to, but I'm not in a position where that is an investment vehicle for my retirement and my future. I knew, and I told Michael going in, this is gambling. And that is exactly what stocks are. Oil's the same way. Look at what's happened with oil prices. There's so many things that are volatile, and that is the vast majority of where retirement funds and income that you have is being driven from. So in my mind, again, it's about being low risk and being something that I can completely control. So back to the story Michael tells. Michael tells the story of a client whose stocks went to zero, but on the same other hand, if that house, you have a home, so you've got 100,000 in stocks, you've got $100,000 property, that $100,000 property burns to the ground. You have insurance to cover it, so you still have your full value of the property, assuming you're properly insured, which if you're with us, you better be. And then number two, even if a radioactive bomb goes off 200 miles away and you are right on the outskirts of that, you still have value. Look at the land outside Chernobyl that still sells. So the bottom line is that real estate is one of the few tools that we have that we can control and that we know are always going to have asset value. And that is not something that we can say when we look at something like stocks. And then in addition to that, real estate performs better. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. So this is the volatility index. And I don't know if many of you have seen this before, but essentially what we are looking at is stocks and how volatile they are. Now we can look at what went on in the crash, and you can see that kind of third shaded band, the volatility of what stocks saw. But all of these little up and down dips, this is where people lose their money. Okay, because it doesn't have to mean that the whole market crashes for whatever you're invested in to have problems. And it doesn't mean that it can't be something that a company goes bankrupt. And I'm sorry to say it's happening right now more than ever. I feel we are in a complete global shift of goods and how our businesses operate. And that's because COVID kind of accelerated what was already happening with this movement to virtuality and to Amazon and Walmart delivery and all of these companies. And so, yeah, we've got these mega corporations who really are controlling our day-to-day goods. All you have to do is look at all of the container ships that sat off the coast of California for weeks because they physically had nowhere to dock them. And it's the amount of goods that are happening and goods that are coming that are all virtually sold. And so we have an entire market shift in what's happening in the office and warehousing industry, the retail industry, the office space industry significantly, but also in housing. And the thing about the stock market is it's very reactive to all of these things changing. You know, there's a reason malls are disappearing and that movies are releasing on HBO Max and all of these channels at the same time they're going to theaters. There's a reason that all of us now, and myself especially, we've become homebodies. I mean, I can count on two hands the number of times that I've been to a Target or Walmart in the last year. If you'd asked me that a year and a half ago, it would have been, oh, I went last Friday. The entire world is changing. Everything is about convenience and commodity and ease. And so when everything is instant gratification, and that's a whole separate tangent I won't get into, but at the end of the day, we can have everything right at our fingertips. And so it is completely transforming the market. And that volatility is something that it's impossible to really track, Because yes, there's signs of what companies are going to go out, and there's signs of what sectors are going to be having problems. But at the end of the day, it's not because the market's failing. And so this volatility index very much looks at a failing market. What we look at is the entire world is changing, and we don't always know what's going to change and how it's going to affect. And for those of you that are invested in stocks for retirement, or oil and gas that are dependent on wars and troops and so many external factors, you just can't control it. And I think most of you know me well enough to know I'm as type A as you can be. And if I can't control it, I don't feel good about it. And so there's a reason that I call stocks gambling. And there's a reason why that's not part of my investment strategy. So let's go back to real estate for a moment. I mentioned a second ago that it performs better. Now, why is that? Number one, there's a lot of ways that real estate can perform, and I'm going to go over some of those with you. Our average property performa, so the average property that we sell or that clients purchase, and every state is different because you've got state income taxes and all sorts of things. But when we look across the portfolio as a whole in Texas, for the simplest and easiest projects we do, meaning new construction, our average property over the first 2 years of ownership performs at over 10% a year. That does not take into consideration principal paydown, appreciation, inflation, natural price growth, any of those things. That's just sheer cash flow. How many of you are consistently and easily getting 10% a year in the stock market if you're not investing in real estate? And that really, at the end of the day, is the question, right? Because we not only want to help you live a better retirement and be able to build that retirement, but it's also about being able to count on that retirement. So it doesn't require daily monitoring. And this is key to me. Time is money, and time is stress, and time is my life that I'm really trying to, in retirement, be able to go enjoy, to travel, to go drive in an RV, to go to the exotic places and go to the museums and be with my grandchildren and all of these things that are typically goals in retirement. And when you're invested in stocks or bonds or market dependent conditions, you can't just sit back and let it do itself. You can hire an investment fund manager to do it, but you're not going to be making the type of return that's going to allow you to build that, and certainly not to the exponential potential of what real estate can do. So most rentals, from a sheer oversight standpoint with a professional manager, you're going to review it once a year. You're going to review it when that lease is up and you're trying to decide whether or not it's time to sell. There's no other real investment model that you're going to do that once a year. I have clients that, other than at our events or when I contact them about lease renewals, I don't talk to them. I miss some of you guys, but it's great because I know that what we're doing and what you're doing is working for your lifestyle and what your needs are. And that, at the end of the day, is the goal, right? Because not everybody follows the same model. Not everybody wants to double their portfolio every 2 to 3 years. Not everybody wants to do all the 1031 exchanges or the leveraging. Yes, to maximize everything that we offer and that maximum exponential growth, all of those items go into play. But at any point of any of these items, you can kick one out and still have an incredible income and an incredible ability to build your retirement. With multiple properties, you are able to diversify within the same low risk asset class. So let's back up to stocks. Let's say you're invested in 15 stocks. Every investment you have is volatile. Every investment you have could be worth $0 tomorrow. You can sell one, but all the others, you're still in the same investment class. We look at real estate. You can have 10 properties across 10 different states, and each one is its own independent investment. It's its own independent review, but they're all low risk. And that is the difference. At the end of the day, each investment is not tied to the other. So for example, when the stock market really went low in COVID and I went and bought a bunch of stock, what did I buy? I bought all the airlines, I bought all the cruise industry, I bought everything to do with entertainment, and I bought anything to do with oil and gas because I was banking on the fact that Trump was going to lose and oil and gas would rebound, right? So what happens if oil and gas tanks? What percentage of my investments in the stock market are a problem? What if the airlines go out and they don't get a bailout or they continue to struggle? What percentage of my stock now is in that same high risk asset class? Real estate's completely different, right? I buy in 15 suburbs of DFW and I throw my darts all over my dartboard, which y'all know that's exactly what I do. I'm just waiting on one city to do really well, the prices to skyrocket, sell and reinvest. But say I have a city that has major tornadoes go through and my house is destroyed. Well, hopefully, A, I'm collecting loss of rents from my insurance policy, so I have no income loss. Insurance is going to pay to fix my house, and then I could either sell it or rent it back out. But all of my other properties are unaffected. And this is the difference between diversification within the same asset class, right? Because it's all the same, it's all real estate, but each one acts as its true own investment model because each property is its own investment. And I think for some people that's really hard to understand until you've been in the middle of it. There are so many ways that you can make money in real estate with the same asset. So let's talk about a few of them. Number one, and I've got a question here about home values. So let's talk about home values for a moment. I've pulled from 2012 to today what home values have done in DFW. Now, there's a few statistics and things I want to tell you going into this. Number one, we're the 4th largest metro in the United States, okay? We are the only affordable housing metro. Compare us with Chicago, LA, San Francisco, New York, your other top performing markets. What is their average price point? We still have homes sub $175,000. Can you say that for any of those markets? No. So do I believe DFW is still extremely undervalued? Yes. Do I believe that we're going to be the new California in values before too long? Yes, I do. Do I have a crystal ball? Absolutely not. Am I banking on that? Absolutely. So let's look at what the values have done. Yes, we have gone up significantly. You can look back at 2012 and look till when we got to the beginning of 2021, what had happened. We had almost doubled. We still are under an average house price of $300,000, even though our average build price is over $300,000. Why is that? Why is that? We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. So, wealth sources with real estate. Cash flow. So this is the monthly amount of money that comes into your account from every property you own. That is the difference between your gross rent and your expenses. So this is your net cash flow. Forced equity. And for those of you who are buying rehab properties, buying properties that you do work to or that have built-in equity because you're buying them with our model, getting them below market value, that is forced equity income you now have. That property is worth more than what you are in it for. Principal pay down every single month. When you make your payment, your cash flow comes into your bank account. But then part of that payment that you're making that you pay to the bank every single month is paying down the principal on that home. And that's approximately another 3% return a year. And so if say your cash flow return first year is 17%, second year it's 12%, you've got another 3% on top of that just paying down your note. And then in addition to that, that's not taking into consideration any forced equity or any appreciation. You know, we're going to talk about appreciation numbers for February in just a moment. The March numbers aren't out yet, but they're through the roof. So I'll represent once those come out. But what the market has done is incredible. And everyone who was telling me I was crazy last year when I said our market was going to blow, you know, what are you saying now? Because we've had in Dallas County over 20% appreciation. So we'll talk about that. And then finally, natural price growth. The model that we utilize, which is suburbs and areas located off our highway systems and expanding areas outside the main metro, one county out. Those areas, as they redevelop and as they grow, there's an entire property increase of the entire city. That's what we've seen for those of you invested with us in Sherman and Denison and Greenville and these other areas. You've seen that there's been a complete market reset. It's not truly appreciation and it's not inflation. It is the entire city has redeveloped and now has all this commercial development and restaurants and nightlife and social items coming in. And so just the overall value of that city now is no longer an entry-level price point kind of rundown city. And so that's what we're banking on. So it's all of these things that go into play with what we're doing. I sold 2 properties this year in a 1031, 2 of my 1031s, 2 properties. I bought them and fixed them up, held on to them for a year and a half. And both of them I was able to go into and replace and identify 2 single family homes into 28 units, 28 from 2 properties in a year and a half. Now, is that the norm? No. But if you play your cards right and you do my model right and you're willing to put a little bit of work in and be handheld and guide through the process, is that something that can be done all day long? Had a fourplex I sold the year before, and I held on to it for just over a year, and I turned one fourplex into 9 single families. And that wasn't even max leveraging, that was standard leveraging. So again, it's all about what you buy, what model you follow, but most importantly, at the end of the day, the team is number one, right? Because you can have the best asset, and if you don't have a good team backing it, it's not going to do what you want it to do. But what is the most important thing after team? Where are you buying? Where do you own? What market? Show me another market that is a top 5 market with affordable housing, an incredible job market. There are over 30 companies today in talks to relocate to Frisco alone, one suburb. 30 today. Population growth has been huge. We have increased our population about 12% in the last decade. For a market of our size, that is insane. But why can we sustain that? Why does that go into everything we're talking about here? DFW is unique. We have the second largest highway per capita miles. We have the largest land mass with employers going into suburbs instead of the main city. Why is that key? You look at LA, San Francisco, all of these areas, New York, the employers go into the main hub and then everyone drives into that hub. And so what happens is that main hub becomes crime-ridden, overpriced, congested, and a total nightmare to live in. The costs go up significantly. The cost of living there goes up significantly. Employers have to pay more. And then predominantly those are states that have state income taxes and non-business friendly climates. What is DFW? Almost 100% of our Fortune 500 relocations that have come to Dallas since the business boom started went into our suburbs. Look it up. Why? We have such a widespread area to travel. And then we have this incredible highway system with HOV roads and tollways that allow us to interconnect, where unlike LA or New York, that going 30 minutes will take you 2 hours, you can go 30 miles in 30 minutes. So the amount of land mass that we have the ability to develop and live in and operate in, and the spread out areas that employers can go to, is really exponential. We have so much land left that by the time we get to a point where we are landlocked, I don't even know that I'm going to be alive anymore. And that is because DFW is built unlike any other major metro. And that is the reason that it is the powerhouse it is. Put aside the business climate and the enterprise fund, put aside the no state income tax. It is the entire ability of living and working in our metro that sets it apart. And that is why prices have and still remain artificially low relative to the powerhouse that DFW is. You have to think about the fact that this area is the 10th largest economy in the world. And yet we're the underdog, right? I mean, we're talking about the average home price is still forecasted to be under $300,000. That to me is staggering. Our $300,000 home is a $1.6 million home in any of the other markets I just told you. So all of that said, it is not unreasonable to double or triple your real estate holdings every 2 to 6 years using 1031 exchanges and leveraging. And the real important piece of that is all of these 5 bullet points below, every one of them doubles too. Every one of them triples too. So twice as many properties, that's twice as much cash flow. Twice as many properties, that's twice as much equity. Twice as much principal pay down, twice as much appreciation, twice as much natural price growth. But more importantly, it's twice as much depreciation on your taxes as well. So let's look at affordability. This is the population increases of a 10-year period and a 3-year period for the top 10 metro service areas, okay? So you'll notice 1 and 2 are Texas, number 8 is Texas, and these are the top 3, in my opinion, performing markets in the United States, okay? Now, it's important to note, if you look at number 3, number 4, number 5, number 7, number 9, and number 10, how they performed in the last crash. And I encourage you to take this, go watch it back after the fact and go do your research on how they fared in the last crash. Because I think the business climate and the business development and the backing that these states have in their state laws are a key role in why Texas does as well as it does, okay? Now, let's look at the market, because this is really important, because everything that we talk about is as easy as it is because of our market. So on the left, I've put February numbers for Dallas County, and on the right, I've put the numbers for Texas as a whole. You'll notice that the median house price compared to February 2020 has gone up almost 29%. The number of active listings has gone down over 48%. Every day right now, we are 30 or 40 offers on most standard on-market listings. Our months of inventory is 1.3 months. We were double that last year when we were going so crazy. Our average days on market for the entirety of Dallas County, keeping in mind this is a county we avoid because of crime rates, 45 days. That includes all of the worst areas of our metro. 7 days less than last year. Now, 1.3 month inventory, wait until you see what March is. It is insane. And you'll notice that closed sales are down 2.4%, even though active listings are down 48.3%. The market is incredible. And at the end of the day, it is what allows us to do everything that we do. So let's talk about the uniqueness and affordability some more. Let's look at rent numbers. Think back to those same markets that I just told you. Think back to people you know, or maybe you who live in New York and California, Chicago. What are the average rents? Here are all of our top and most expensive suburbs. What are your average rents here? $1,500, $1,350. Allen, one of the most desirable areas in our entire metro, $1,375 average rent. So why are people moving here? Why are people renting? Affordability is key. And the returns that we get take into consideration this. So it's the best of both worlds for tenants and landlords. There's a reason why home ownership is at 50-year lows. Why is that? A, people want instant gratification. They don't want long-term commitment. That's why you have fewer people that are settling down long-term. They're going job to job, area to area based on what they get offered. This is precisely what we are seeing. Dallas and DFW as a whole is the precursor to all of these changes, because what we're seeing is a market that is affordable, whether you're a homeowner, whether you're a renter, but in many ways it is more affordable to be a renter in the suburbs than it is to be anywhere else. And of course, that's where the employers are, that's where your toll roads are, that's where all your great new schools and shopping and restaurants, which are in a huge abundance here. And why are they in abundance here? Because of expendable income. People come here, they relocate here, all of these businesses coming here, and they can pay their people the same or about the same, but their people live like they're making 3 to 5 times as much because of the cost of living difference. And then of course the tax difference and everything else. So tax benefits, let's talk about cost segregation depreciation, okay? Every property that you own, you depreciate on your taxes, and it basically reduces the amount of tax liability you have. So say that you have a $200,000 property that you depreciate over a 27.5-year life, you're saving quite a bit in income that then is dropping your tax bill that you pay out. When you cost segregate something, and if you're not familiar with what this is in more depth, I've done lots of classes on this and we've got another one upcoming too, but essentially you accelerate the items that we can depreciate faster. So someone who's a large volume investor can have millions of dollars in income offset by cost segregation, which is precisely what people like me do. And then the 1031 exchange potential is a huge tax benefit. And the reason being is that every time you're doing that 1031 exchange, you're doubling or tripling or whatever you're doing your depreciation. And if you're doing cost segregations, it even increases more, but it's all about how long you're going to hold your property. And so cost segregations are an accelerated depreciation basis as opposed to the standard depreciation basis. And then of course, when you're in real estate, you can 1031 exchange your proceeds and reinvest them, which is what we recommend doing. And then you're deferring your gain until you die. And then the best part is when you die, which hopefully is going to be a really long time from now, but when it is, your heirs are now taxed on the stepped up basis, not what you originally paid for it. So that means that they get the great depreciation and all of those same things based on what it's worth when they inherit it, not what you paid for it. And I hope and pray that this stays around, because this is one of the best tools as we look at people in their golden years looking to retire, because what other investment opportunities can you give that are going to give not only you, but later your heirs all of these sources of income and protection that you enjoy while you're alive, then it steps up and then they get to enjoy next. It's a great option. And this is a reason why so many people do trust and go buy real estate, because it is a great path to leave. Now, buying when retired, there are lots of things that I get asked. Is this going to be difficult? How are they going to look at it? Can I qualify? And so let's talk about a few of those. Number one, we work with lenders who specifically work with people who are on retirement income or have retirement assets and retirement accounts. Your traditional conventional lenders, which you guys know I'm not a proponent of, or at least those of you that have watched any of my classes know I'm not a proponent of, they are very in the box, black and white when they look at a file. How much money do you make? What is your debt to income ratio? What is your credit score? Those are the three things they're looking at. And then they're going to ask you for everything but your blood type to verify all those facts. When we look at a portfolio lender, they are looking at you as a business. They are looking at you as a real estate business. And so they can look at your assets and net worth if you don't have the income. You have carryover losses and companies that lost money or companies you sold. They can look at all that and they can take it in comparison with what you own, what your experience is. I have people who are school teachers and military personnel and people who are just regular people making $40,000 to $50,000 a year who buy real estate. And they have no problem getting it because we partner ourselves with people and banks and entities who believe in the empowerment that we are trying to do with people to help them excel and maximize their life and their enjoyment of their life. And it's different, right? Because it's not a corporate approach at all. And most of you know it's everything that we stand for, right? It's so important that everyone is their own unique situation and their own unique person and investment model. And so what works for you may not work for the person next to you and may not work for me, but at the end of the day, we all understand the power of buying, investing, and leveraging in real estate. And that, at the end of the day, is what binds us all together. When you're retired and you're buying real estate, we can still, if you have not yet drawn your 401k, maybe you're not of age, maybe whatever the situation is, we can leverage and purchase and do the same model through your IRA. And a lot of people don't realize that now. Building the IRA is not going to give you cash flow because that cash flow can't come back to you, but we can build your retirement account. And that is key, especially if you're not at drawing age yet. And so that is something that I think a lot of people just don't realize. Now, of course, the thing that brings it all together is the hand-holding experience, because there's going to be pieces you don't understand. There's going to be pieces you don't know. It's a crazy market. There's more buyers than there are properties. There are more agents in the state of Texas than there are listings on the market. It is a cutthroat market, yet we still have a ton of inventory, as those of you receiving our list know. Why is that? Relationships, number one, because people want to work with us because our model and the way we conduct ourselves and our investors' caliber and their closing ability is unparalleled. It's also about off-market property. It's about buying in areas where most people aren't operating. There's a lot of reasons why we have inventory, but the bottom line is we do. And that makes it a handhold, easy, seamless experience for you, and that's what matters. So number one, we have the investment team who scopes, runs numbers on, and sends you properties that fit your criteria. You have access to your investor portal. You can see available properties, the goal being to make it as hands-off for you as possible, especially at this stage of your life. The next are virtual visits without ever having to leave your home. Photos, videos, anything you can think of, we can do it. This is important before COVID. It's especially important during COVID, not only because of the hassle of traveling, but also because a lot of people still aren't comfortable traveling. It also allows us to move very quickly, which gives us access to properties that perhaps others may not be able to have access to. Of course, the easy lenders for a seamless process like we just discussed. In-house acquisitions and sales, leasing and management, repairs and maintenance, and anything else you could think of for a completely and truly hands-off experience. And then finally, market monitoring with updates to let you know each year as your lease comes up for renewal what we're thinking. Every year you're going to hear from me and I'm going to tell you what the market's doing. And then if you're not ready to sell and you're not at the point where you're ready to do that process, then we're going to go to bat to get you the best terms for renewal that we can. And that whole process is streamlined. Now let's talk about new construction, because the majority of our clients investing in these years do go with our new construction model. It's really a perfect pairing because of the fact that it is a perfect complement to that hands-off, out of mind, out of sight model. So number one, new construction properties come with extensive warranties, and then we recommend on all single family a home warranty for years 2 to 5 over and above that. And so it is in most cases virtually worry-free ownership for 5 years. It also has the reduced cost of ownership with limited hassle because of those warranties. So it's not just the cost of repairs that add up, it's also the inconvenience and the situation of having to deal with it. Move outs and make readies are easy. We do those all day long, every day. They're consistent, they're the same. Whether we paint this wall or that wall at this house or that house, it's all the same. And the vast majority of make-readies are billed back to a tenant, especially in new construction where they received it brand new. In addition, tenants that go into new construction properties, if they stay our average lease length of 30 months, by the time they move out, you're probably selling. And often we're going to sell before they're even out of the property. And because of the amazing market Texas has right now, we can often sell it with tenants in place. Like one of the properties I mentioned I just sold that I did into that huge exchange, we sold it with the tenant in place to an owner occupant who sat on the tenant, hired us to handle it because they didn't want to lose out on the house. And then finally, there's often extra cash flow from reduced property taxes at the beginning of ownership. So for those of you that haven't watched the new construction class yet, or any of the classes I've done on the new construction model, I definitely recommend you do, because what you're going to find is that in that beginning, the tax assessment is much lower. And this happens about 99% of the time. And that will add up to, in most cases, an extra $2,000 to $3,000 in income over the first 12-month period. And when we're talking about a leveraged property, that is an extra 8 to 10% in return year one. So it adds up very quickly. When we look at these cash on cash returns, it's all about how much money are you making for the money that you've put out. So if you put out $20,000 in down payment or $30,000 in down payment, in year one, you make an extra $3,000, it's a huge percentage. In year two and year three, we typically don't see them get to full purchase price value. And of course, if the value does skyrocket and the property taxes go up, well, now you've got all that equity we're talking about in appreciation and inflation to go sell the property, double the portfolio, and do exactly what we're talking about. So it's truly a win-win situation. And another reason we'd recommend and we strongly, strongly advise to do our sale model is that the longer you own that property, you eat into that warranty, the property taxes go up, rents are going up at 3%, value, as I just showed you, is going up at double digits. There's a huge disparagement every year of lost income because you're making less of about 7% every single year, assuming appreciation continues. So it only makes sense as that property tax goes up, the value goes up to sell and reinvest, which is why the vast majority of our clients do that. So in a nutshell, yes, there is effort to invest in your golden years. It's a worthwhile effort, and it will allow your golden years to give you something that perhaps it would not be able to otherwise. And this is something we do every day. This is something we believe in, we're passionate about, and we've built our entire model to support you no matter what life stage you are in. And so whether you invest today at 40, or whether you invested yesterday at 20, or whether you invest tomorrow at 60 or 80, the model is the same. The approach is the same. But just know that we are here to support you and guide you and make it as seamless and as smooth and as simple as possible, regardless of what situation you're in your life. And we will tailor that experience to you based on where you are. Now, I'm shocked that I've been talking for, I don't know, maybe almost an hour and I don't have any questions. So are there any questions before I close out? And while I wait on that, I'm going to put all the contact information up here for the investment team in case anyone wants to discuss any of this further, or of course, you can always reach out to me at ceo@omnikeytexas.com. So I have a question. What is the average landscape budget on a typical 3-2 1,400 square foot, 180,000 new construction? We actually don't do extensive landscaping at properties. Everything that is needed, unless otherwise stated, is included by the builder. So we write into our contracts that sod is included, which if you've been watching prices of materials is through the roof right now. So the builder is probably doing $5,000 to $7,000 in landscaping, if I had to guess, on every property, and the vast majority of that expense is in sod. Now, if you look at the cost of fill dirt and grading and all of those things that go into new construction, it would be significantly more than that. But in terms of doing fancy flowers and bushes and all of that, we keep everything very minimal because, again, these are rental properties and we truly, truly want this to be easy maintenance for the tenant because that means easy management, easy ownership, and easy sale. I love single family, but recently there's a big move into syndication of large apartments as an alternative investment vehicle. What are your thoughts on this? So I have a lot of clients that are invested into syndications of large apartments, and I certainly won't trash them because I think there's a great use for them and a great model for that. I personally don't do syndications, and I don't sell syndications, and I don't market syndications because it's counterproductive to the model that I preach, which is you are in control of your own destiny. When you have partners, when you have other people involved with you, when you have other people investing with you, and specifically when you are a minority in said investment, you have very little control. You also have very little ability to dictate when things happen. So if the partnership or the group says they want to sell, you're selling. If they say they don't want to sell, you're not selling. If you have a nightmare property you want out of, but nobody else wants to sell, you're stuck. So do I believe there's a great model for this? Absolutely. Is it the model that fits my lifestyle and my model at OmniKey? No, it is not. Now, we manage for tons of these types of properties and people love them. And I have a friend who's invested in 50 something of them and just loves it because it's what she knows and it's what she's comfortable with. But it's all about what fits you. I'm type A, and the idea of being beholden to somebody else to tell me when and what I can do with my properties would keep me up at night. And so for me, it's not a fit, but certainly for many others, it may be. I also believe that with COVID and with the changes that we're seeing in the Dallas market, I believe that apartment pricing is overinflated at the moment, and specifically large complexes. And I also think that there has been a significant movement into low density housing, and specifically in the suburbs. And so I do buy small multifamily, and I'm a big believer in small multifamily. I bought 3 or 4 apartments this last year myself, including a 24 unit and a 10 unit. But for me, it's about the model of my apartment purchases have to fit the model that I do for everything else. And so it needs to be that same private feel, home feel that attracts the right tenants in the right market and the right model. And I think COVID has reshaped a lot of that for a lot of us. And I am seeing a huge transition back into small multifamily and low density housing for a lot of reasons, but certainly Dallas and DFW as a whole lends itself to that because of our wide open space, our bigger lots, our ability to really spread out that draws people here. Now, apartment dwellers are often always going to be apartment dwellers. And so there's always going to be a need and a model for that. And many of the areas that we sell and we serve are actually in a huge deficit of apartments. But the reason for that is because they can go into the city and into the main areas that are the older, kind of more developed areas and sell for twice as much. And so these builders are not incentivized to come build high density multifamily out in these far out suburbs. But that's a huge benefit to us because it's one of the reasons why our single family and low density rents so well, because there's pretty much no competition. So that's a huge benefit. Yes, there are rehabbed properties and new builds that we work with, and all of that is available depending on what you're looking for. Let's see. Will Biden change the real estate benefit of 1031 exchange plan? I certainly do not think so. You have to remember that the vast majority of the people in power made their money in real estate. So there are a lot of talk and there are a lot of big talk, but at the end of the day, it would hurt them. And so no, I don't think they're going to get the support to do that. And I don't want to get political, but I don't think that the election that's coming up here not too long from now is going to go the same way the last one did. And so I think we're going to see a lot of movement over the next year to try to tighten up restrictions on people and all of that. But at the end of the day, look at COVID, right? We're in Texas. They tried to make it where we couldn't evict people. They tried to make it where we couldn't collect rent. They tried to get rent forgiveness. They tried to do all these things. But at the end of the day, what did they really get? Very, very little here in our state. So do I think that there could be things in certain states that could affect individual investors? Like, do I think that California is high risk to really try to hurt real estate investors? Absolutely. They've already done it. I mean, rent control was step one. Now they're trying to go back and tax people that haven't lived there for the next 10 years. So do I think that it's very, very much about where you choose to live and where you choose to invest? Yes. But on a national basis, do I think that the people who are making their money in real estate and their wealth in real estate are going to get rid of this? I don't think so. I don't have a crystal ball, but that's certainly what I think. I appreciate all the accolades, everybody. I truly do. Let's see, can you recommend a portfolio lender who lends on multiple purchases? Yes, all of our lenders lend on multiple purchases, and it's all about relationship. And so when you contact me, Jason, or Chelsea, one of the things that we're going to do is go over with you what your situation is, what your goals are, and refer you to the person that we think is the best fit. We have 4 different portfolio lenders that we work with on a day-to-day basis, and they have special programs available for our customers, and they know our model. They do my own lending as well, so they're very familiar with what we do and very comfortable with it. And then for those of you that do want to take advantage of Fannie Mae type terms, and I'll try to talk you out of it, but if you do, which many do, we've got a fantastic Fannie Mae conventional lender as well, who's the best of the bad breed. What do I think of the McKinney market? McKinney is not an investment market. The McKinney market is really way too expensive and the rent just doesn't return. So when we look at kind of the trifecta of the best markets to invest in for rental property purposes, we want to see sales prices sub 210,000. We want to see rents sub $1,800, and we want to see an area that still has lots of land available to develop off major highways or thoroughfares. So when we have a city like McKinney or a city like Plano, yes, they're booming right now, but their booming is in the $1 million plus or $800,000 plus price point. And what happens with that is, of course, rents go up, as I mentioned, at a 3% rate as opposed to sale values and actual overall value that goes up at a much higher rate. And so what that means is that the more you spend on a property, the worse the return is actually going to be. And so it's very, very important that you stick in that entry level price point, because on a percentage growth basis, you're going to see a much higher percentage of potential growth for appreciation and return than you ever would in the higher price points. But many of the areas that we invest in surround markets like McKinney. Yes, they have their own employment centers and their own employers, but they're also a 20-minute drive into cities like Plano and McKinney that are where the people that are the higher ups are living. And so we're targeting blue collar workers making up to about $75,000 a year. When you look at areas like McKinney, we're really targeting people that make significantly more than that, because that's what that market with price pointing can sustain. So we haven't sold McKinney in about 10 years because prices just got too high. What would be the best strategy, single family, duplex, or fourplex? That is not a question I can answer on an overall basis, because I believe in all of them, and it's dependent on what your goals are, what your cash situation is, what your time situation is, and that's part of what we discuss in any of our strategy sessions. Let's see. And my contact information again is ceo@omnikeytexas.com. So based on your model, how many single family need to hit to 10,000 a month target? So that depends on leveraging and the type of financing that you do. So with conventional financing, it's less than it is with portfolio financing, and whether you do single family or multifamily, because the amortizations change and therefore the actual rent changes in terms of the cash flow. So I can send you some scenarios looking at it the 3 different ways so that you can see how many that it takes. And it also depends on whether you're buying properties with built-in equity, where you're capitalizing on equity as value towards your down payment, or whether you're doing traditional new construction. But you can reach out to the team and we can walk you through all of that. We have performers that look at all of that. Let's see, you mentioned Greenville, Denison, and Sherman are areas that now have adjusted in values. What if other affordable areas are you expecting similar adjustments in? We work in about 25 suburbs. And so if you join our investment team and you're seeing the mailers and everything, there's actually information on every one of those cities in our investor portal that goes over numbers with you, employment rates, jobs, who the major employers are, mapping, all of that. But we work about 25 different suburbs. My top areas right now, I love all the areas that we present. They're all actually quite similar. Where I have bought the vast majority of my properties lately has been Sherman, Denison, Greenville. Part of that is because I keep my crews close together, because my average rehab is 40 to 50,000, and I currently have about 28 going as of today, and that doesn't include my apartments and remodels. So volume-wise for me, I've kept everything real tight the last 6 months because of volume. But generally, I have property all over. I bought one in Wills Point a few months ago, which is way out there. I bought in Waco. I bought in Longview. I just bought one in White Settlement last month. I've got them everywhere. If you look at a dartboard, everything around the main inner cities that we avoid in the inner counties, if you threw a dart, that's basically how I invest. What do I anticipate the inevitable price correction will hit? I don't see any price correction hitting. And truthfully, Dallas is still so undervalued, in my opinion, that there are going to be markets that are affected. And it's the markets that we've all been warning all along, because their political climate for investors and businesses has just decimated their ability to do business. I think California and New York are going to see corrections because they're just simply losing their businesses and losing their people. Where are those people going? Florida and here. And so at the end of the day, I don't think that we're going to see any price correction here. The forecasters are calling for 2 more years minimum of this insane growth that DFW is seeing. Now, there's no guarantees, there's no crystal ball, anything can happen, but certainly I'm banking on the fact that DFW is still significantly undervalued, and that our employment relocations and businesses moving here and people moving here and this crazy growth is only going to continue to intensify as we exit COVID and more people decide this is where they want to be. Rate difference between a portfolio lender and conventional. Dean, thank you for asking this, because this is a huge selling point right now. If you asked me 4 months ago what the rate difference was, I would have told you approximately 0.5%. up to 1% depending on the lender. Fannie Mae adjusted, and Fannie Mae has increased their lending interest rate in response to this massive refinance and everything else that's been going on with the number of loans being done and COVID. And so right now they are identical. The interest rate being offered at Fannie Mae for our customers and the interest rate being offered for portfolio lending is identical, or portfolio is slightly less with 20% down. Now tell me that's not crazy. Let's see, more thank yous. I appreciate that. With rates increasing, do the properties still cash flow in your markets? Absolutely. You know, we were selling the same properties in the same model at 6.25% for our investors 5 years ago. And so if anything, it's just really increased things now. But, you know, we are constantly adjusting what we're selling and where we're selling, moving a ring out and a ring out just a little further and a little further as areas develop and intensify. And so for us, we keep our sales price point about the same. The interest rates are negligible differences, especially when you're looking at a 25 to 30-year amortization. It just doesn't make that big of a difference. But when interest rates are higher, appreciation is higher generally, and so it really combats itself. Far North Dallas and North Dallas area, again, priced out. The rents just don't return. It's overpriced compared to what you can get out in the suburbs, and that's not where people are moving. That may be the kind of hype area that people want to move to, and so it makes a lot of publicity, but that's not where the best returns are. You're not going to be able to get the kind of return in money that we're talking about and the ability to do the 1031 exchanges. You know, you have a $300,000 property that goes up 30 grand, that's 10%, but that 30 grand isn't going to get you another $300,000 property. You have a $150,000 property that goes up 10%, that's 15 grand. That's going to be able to get you leveraged with another property much faster. And so on a percentage basis, the differences are much more impactful in the lower price point than it is in the higher price point. Let's see, still got questions coming in. Yep, another thank you, I appreciate that. Lending conditions and rates for foreign investors. So we have one lender that we work with for foreign investors, assuming that you are not a US citizen and do not have a US social. If you are a US citizen working abroad and it happens to be you know, typical employment, or it's a US employer, you actually can get financing just like a US citizen in most cases. But for a true foreign national who has never been and does not live here, does not have a social, we're seeing rates for foreign nationals in the low 6s, and depending on the percentage down, that can get a little bit lower. So the terms for foreign nationals are actually quite good with our lender. Just know that those types of financing terms are very few and far between. They only work with us, and they only work in North Texas. So just keep that in mind. Other than that, I think that, let's see, oh, I have one more. In the new construction model, do you 1031 into more new construction properties or to older properties? That is, again, a individual investor dependent question, but the vast majority of our new construction clients that follow the model to the T, that are constantly doing that 1031 model and following us, like all the ones that have been buying alongside us, they stay with new construction, but they do often move into 2-unit, 3-unit, and 4-unit properties. So duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes for some of their investment model, especially right now where those items are such a hot commodity. Let's see. Again, you can contact me at ceo@omnikeytexas.com. And then do you cover cities like Houston, San Antonio? Yes, we cover 70% of Texas for property management. We have staff down there. We cover Austin, San Antonio, Houston, Killeen, Waco, really all of those areas that you can think of. We go all the way down to Galveston, and we go all the way west through to Abilene, and all the way east through Longview, Marshall, Tyler, that area. Let's see, Austin and Carrollton, yep, we cover both of those. More thank yous. All right, I think that's it. Y'all did great. You saved it all for the end, so I didn't lose my train of thought. So thank you for that. And I'll look forward to speaking with many of you. And if we don't talk before, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your month. And I will see you for my last class coming up here at the end of the month, talking about lease tiering. Otherwise, I just want to thank everybody for being a part of the OmniKey family. It has been the blessing of my life to own and operate this, and certainly with my best friend and all of our fantastic staff. If you ever need anything, we're always here. Our goal is to help all of you build that lifestyle we talk about so much. And you know, y'all are a huge part of it, and we just thank you for being a part of it with us. So without further ado, everybody have a wonderful afternoon, and I'll look forward to talking to all of you soon. Take care.